I need you to hate so I can use you for your energy.
This is Real Sales Talk. Real sales advice from real sales practitioners. Giving you tips on how to dominate your sales quota are your co-hosts, Sean Mitchell and Phil Keene. This episode is brought to you by Convertist. We are incredibly excited to have partnered together with Convertist, which helps SaaS and services run managed outbound campaigns for teams looking to drive new pipeline opportunities. For teams targeting mid-size and enterprise deals, Convertist integrates with CRMs like Salesforce to uncover actionable data in their sales processes, which enables them to find areas of improvement and double down on strategies that actually work. Benchmark the lead generation performance expected of a seasoned SDR and identify actionable areas of improvement in a sales process, all out of one place with Convertist. For teams looking to measure and enhance their performance of their sales funnel and architect a better revenue engine, cast an application to join the Convertist Slack group. It's at convertist.com/Slack. That's Convertist, convertist.com/Slack, SLACK.
What is going on, Real Sales Talk family? We have a guest here, Nick Ruiz, who recently just wrote a book. It's all the shit that nobody wants to talk about. That's what Nick paraphrased into a very, very short synopsis of what his book's about. The book is called Success from Scratch. I'll probably not do it justice. Nick, give us a little overview about yourself so we know where you're from.
Yeah, well, I'm Nick Ruiz, like you were saying, twice self-made entrepreneur. So I started, I won't give you the whole backstory, but I've been doing entrepreneurial things since a very young age. But in my late teens, I started getting into real estate, and I built a multi-million-dollar net worth by my mid-20s. And then what happened is the big financial crisis of 2008 that I'm sure most of you are familiar with took me down and forced me into actual bankruptcy, okay? Like real bankruptcy, not like kind of broke, like bankrupt. And what happened was I quickly, and again, we can kind of broad stroke this because there's a lot to cover, but I quickly bounced back. I'll give you the important points. I quickly bounced back right after bankruptcy with zero finance. And I started from scratch the first time too, but the second time was even worse because I had a bankruptcy on my record, zero cash. You know, obviously my credit was worse than bad credit. It's bankruptcy. It doesn't get worse. And I bounced back quickly again as an entrepreneur. And then I also started an education company that became very successful, teaching people how to make money in real estate using no cash and no credit. And then as I started teaching people and coaching people and, you know, giving my material out and having successful students, it really forced me to dissect the success from scratch process. I did it twice. I was producing people doing it, you know, successful students. And I'm like, I need to really dissect this. See, when you do things, you kind of take it for granted. You're making moves, boom, 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 connecting the dots so fast, but you never really like zoom out. And actually one of the chapters in the book forces you to zoom out on your own regime because believe it or not, everybody's on this timeline and they're ding, 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 they're going across. But the problem is when you're on that two-dimensional timeline, you don't get the 3D approach. And when you zoom out, you're like, oh, this is here and that's there, but you don't see it. So I wrote this book and you can see it here, Success from Scratch. It's called, the subtitle is Mental Strategies for Success in a Survival of the Fittest Environment. I believe we are in Darwinian capitalism. People can debate me all they want, but that's what's happening. I didn't create that. That's not something I made up, and like that's where we're at. It's survival of the fittest, Darwinian capitalism. And the analogy is beautiful. I make everything an analogy to evolution. Okay, nature rewards species who adapt and evolve, and it eliminates species who don't adapt and evolve. It's pretty simple, okay? The economy is nature. The business economy is nature. I don't care if you're sales, you're entrepreneur. I don't care what you're doing. The economy rewards the adapters and evolvers, and it eliminates the people who are stuck in their old ways and who don't want to change and move and bob and weave. It's really that simple, and I broke it all down in this book because it's not a fluke when you do success multiple times from scratch. When you do it once, God bless you. Maybe you had luck, maybe you didn't. But there's no way to like stamp it that like maybe there was a little extra wind at your back. When you do it like I did it, and I'm not trying to brag, I'm just stating the facts, it's not a fluke. You don't have wind at your back every time you do something. And, what I mean by wind at my back, for those of you who don't know that expression, it just means maybe a little couple stars align that you weren't aware of. I've done it multiple times. So I forced myself to dive deep, dissect my moves, dissect everything, which is hard to do, by the way, because you take what you do for granted. I broke it all down. And I'm like, this is what I did. Da, da, da. And pretty soon I mapped out the success sequence and the evolutionary process of entrepreneurs. So that's kind of a lot of things in a short little scene there.
Yeah, no, that's really, really incredible. And I admire you for that, because I'm in that situation right this very moment where things are going so fast that, taking a moment to actually stop and think, okay, what got me to that win, or what got me to that sale 30 minutes ago, because I'm on to the next thing. I mean, while you're talking, I'm actually sending a text to our executive assistant saying, hey, can you send me an email with a summary of these offers that we've got for my phone call in 15 minutes? So how do you, what are some of those strategies that you utilize to actually make time to say, okay, what made me successful so it can be repeated?
Well, first of all, the big global thing was, I need to dissect this period, and I really dove deep. Now, do I do it every day? No, because what happens is the brain is a very intriguing part of the body. And what happens is when you get to a certain point, like a lot of my actions are subconscious. When I'm closing people and selling people, I'm not thinking, well, they came with this rebuttal, so I'm going to move around and go this way. And then if they say that, you're not consciously thinking. So the brain takes sequences that you do on a regular basis and says, you know what? We got this figured out. We're going to move this to the more subconscious part where it just flows with Nick or flows with Sean. And we're going to save the higher level conscious thinking for your prefrontal cortex, where you actually have to put thought into it. So when you're like, I'm taking what you just said, you're making moves. There's a lot of dust you're creating. The dust hasn't settled, but the beauty of it is you're moving so fast, so forward that you're like, things are beautiful. I don't need to ponder. Success, sequences, wins, winning. And that's beautiful. What I noticed in my life, when you're winning and when you're succeeding, you don't ponder what you're doing. Like, you don't think, how could I optimize this? And you do, but I'm saying on a deep level, you keep cruising. But when you get knocked down to bankruptcy, I tell people, and this is the facts, my bankruptcy was the greatest event of my entrepreneurial career. And that may sound crazy to most people. That changed my life. I am 1,000 times better entrepreneur because of that bankruptcy. There's not a win that I've gained in the world that made me who I am now compared to the bankruptcy. So the dust never, when I was cruising, the dust never really settled, where I could be like, whoa, like I could have done that better. I could have done that better. Holy cow, I screwed that up. This, that. You don't do that because you're cruising so fast. So my bankruptcy forced me to really take a zoomed out approach. And now I do it. I'm not going to say daily, but I force myself to zoom out. And one of my chapters here is actually called, and it's interesting because I take two approaches on it, zooming out in time and space. And you might be thinking, here, chapter 19, go macro in macro, zooming out, go macro in time and space. Now, what does that mean? Well, you have two places to zoom out on. One is your actual map of where you're going to go, and the other one is time. You zoom out on it. We're all on a timeline where we trot along. And what happens is it allows us to dissect our past moves, and there's a lot. I poured my soul into this book. There's so many, and nobody's writing about anything that's in here. I'm telling you right now, most people have these books, the 10 steps to success. Dude, you have a unique DNA and life experience. I have a unique DNA and life. There is no such thing. You eat peanut butter, it kills you. I eat peanut butter, I get hyped up and jiggy, and I'm ready to take on the day. It's like success is like biology. So the recipe varies, and I focus on each person evolves. Their success path is an evolutionary process.
So let's slow down a little bit. So as you have this idea for this book, right? So you're successful once, you built a really successful business.
Yeah.
But talk about the moment where you signed the document to declare bankruptcy. How did you feel? Where was your head at?
My head was in the worst place my head's ever been in my entire life. Okay. I was in the eye of the storm. Now, again, I told you bankruptcy was the greatest experience of my life. That was the hindsight wisdom that came out. The problem is when people are in the eye of the storm, they don't actually understand what it's doing to you. I didn't know what the bankruptcy was doing to me. So when I signed on the dotted line and what quote unquote did my bankruptcy, I was depressed. I was miserable. I was the worst version of myself, because you got to remember, my identity, my ego, Nick, was intertwined in my entrepreneurial career. And this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, go through in battle. You know, entrepreneurship, I would say, I'm not going to say one of the downsides, but one of the things you have to be careful of is your actual personal identity gets intertwined with your entrepreneurial career. And I'm sure you guys can see where I'm going with that. So when you file bankruptcy entrepreneurially, Nick, the person, is belly up, bottom. So I never knew what depression was until that situation. I was a prick. I didn't want to see anybody. I mean, I could tell you stories. The way I treated people because I was so miserable was not in my character whatsoever. But remember, that bankruptcy took me down. So I was, again, across the board, mentally, physically, like there was no, I've never been in a worse place because it was totally catastrophic. And I had no idea what it was shaping me for. All I know is that, and I actually had very poisonous thoughts, like maybe I just took my shot in entrepreneurship, and that was that. And I never used to think like that. And like I tell people, I've been listening to Tony Robbins cassette tapes since I was a teenager. Okay, that doesn't help you when you're actually that miserable. You don't know what to do. You're just looking around at darkness, you know, everywhere you look. And you're like, did I just take my shot and that was it? Now I got to, like, do I need to get a job? I mean, what the hell? Like it was, and again, bad thoughts, terrible thoughts, but it was my reality in the moment. So poisonous situation for me.
So talk about the next step. So you start coming out of it. What do you have a moment? Is there something that made you pivot, made you change, where you go from having dark thoughts to, all right, I got to get back on the horse and take the next step. I got to take another shot.
Real Sales Talk family, want to take a quick break just to say thank you to our partner Convertist. If you're interested in improving your game to drive leads, opportunities, or closes, join the Convertist Slack group, a place where sales and marketing operators can talk best practices to architect a revenue engine. Cast an application at convertist.com/Slack. That's convertist.com/Slack. Now let's get back to the episode.
Yeah. The nice thing about being belly up or in financial restraints are it forces urgency. Okay. The guy that's making $1,500 a week at his job right now every Friday, he's got a problem because $15 or $2,000 a week. Let's just say you have a nice job. Your boss hands you $2,000 every Friday. That's a problem for a guy who truly wants to hustle and make moves because he doesn't have to do anything. That's a decent paycheck, right? $2,000 a week. So I was forced. I had a family, you know. I was forced to make moves. When a human's back is against the wall, it's actually mind-boggling what they can accomplish. And I'm not suggesting anyone force themselves into that state because it was a very, very catastrophic state. But I will say the beautiful part of it is it forces things out of you that nothing else can do. Okay. It's fight or flight. What are you going to do? You're going to survive or you're going to die. And you go into a certain type of survival mode where I think a lot of instincts take over. I mean, I exhausted every resource. Okay. I called, to get back on my feet. I was going through my Rolodex, hounding people, trying to find a deal. Okay. And eventually I found one. And the amount of work I went through to find one, if I was on Easy Street, like I was cruising, making a ton of money before, I probably wouldn't have gone through all of the steps it took, but it was like raw hustle. Okay. And true entrepreneurship at its truest form.
I think that's beautiful too. And a lot of people overlook the mistakes and the challenges of life. And I hear Gary Vaynerchuk talk a lot about this as a direct reason why he's so hungry and so successful. It's because he grew up in an environment where he had nothing really. So
scarcity. Yeah,
totally. Talk a little bit about that because I think that's so fundamental. to grab a hold of, because people who are fortunate and who have a lot of things often don't look, they're not going through the Rolodex and they're not thinking, okay, how can I make something out of nothing?
Yeah.
Give us some insight into that process I mean, how can someone duplicate that? Or is it even possible to duplicate that if you have a lot?
It's a good question, and it brings up a really good point. And what I want to do right now is crush a lot of the fluffy stuff that's actually going on right now. We talk about, I told you, there's a lot of success books and success teachers, okay? Excuse me. Hey. There's a lot of success books. It's my little daughter. What are you going to do? We're on live TV here.
That's cute.
That's life. That's life.
Love it.
That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. You work out of your house and you get to enjoy your family and yell at kids once in a while while you're doing business. So check it out. A lot of the success talk out there right now is very generic recycled material. And, like, for example, you hear this think in abundance and all this kind of thing. And, that doesn't work for me. Okay. I think in scarcity. I approach every deal like it's my last one. Okay. Because what happens is, let's say you have, a bunch of deals going on right now, and then someone, passes another opportunity. Sean, let's say you got all these things in the works and someone calls you and says, hey, Sean, I got this beautiful thing over here. I want you to take a look at it, because you're making money on all these other things you're juggling here. You're like, yeah, I'll call you tomorrow or something like that. I will approach that thing that guy just called me about as the absolute only opportunity I will ever see for the rest of my life. Now, am I saying that is the be all end all success advice? No, I'm not. I'm saying I know what works for me. And I think it works for more people than people want to think. Think in abundance and all this fluffy stuff people talk about. I think it's garbage, at least for me. When that guy calls me, when I'm making so much money over here with so many deals, I'm going to treat him like he is the last guy to ever call me for a deal. And I'm going to extract every penny out of that deal. I'm going to negotiate like I have zero in my bank account. I actually operate on the scarcity psychology. Like, tomorrow I will starve if I don't show up tomorrow. Like, I'm starving. I feel like I don't win. And again, that may not be the blanket advice for every human succeeding, but it works. I will say this, it just freaking works. Scarcity is king, and it opposes a lot of the success jargon that's out there right now.
I like that idea. So, I mean, I think it would be easier to like get yourself motivated when you do have that scarcity. But let's say you've experienced success. You're experiencing success right now, Nick.
Right.
How do you keep that mental edge, even though you have abundance and you have success and financial stability?
It's a tough one, because the reality is great things are working. Things are working. I'd say it's just, it's the way I've been operating for so long that it's just kind of ingrained in me. I think it's a habit like anything else. I think anything can be created. I think you just have to force yourself to think scarcity. Tomorrow's never, because the reality is tomorrow could be scarce for me, for you, for Phil. And that is reality. And that's what Darwinian evolution and Darwinian capitalism, more importantly, is all about. No one saw 2008. The heaviest hitters on Wall Street that have been trading for 45 years there were some indicators, but no one knew the depth of it. Okay. Banks that were 140 years old closed their doors after the 2008. Literally, Lehman Brothers, or 118 years, whatever. You're talking century-old banks closed. So my point is, the bobbers and I bobbed and weave. What I do now is different pre-2008. I mean, there's some core things I still do and strings I pull, but I do a lot of things differently. It's evolution. It's bobbing, weaving, and adapting. And again, going back to the question of how do you keep a scarcity psychology, I think you force yourself, like any habit. How do you run every day? How do you run every day? You wake up and you force yourself to run. But after that 30th day, 60th day, 90th day, it's more of like, this is what I do. So it's like anything else. I mean, how do you stay thin? How do you eat right? How do you run? How do you anything? You force yourself in the beginning. And it's tough sometimes when you do have a lot of good things coming your way. Scarcity will always win. And the reason it will win is because I trace, and I talk about this in the book, I trace us back to primitive humans. We are cavemen dressed in Versace shirts and wearing Rolexes and, have, leather shoes and drive cars that you push button to turn on. We're literally physiologically the same biology as we were 10,000 years ago. And we have a very simple operating system. We run away from painful things and we run towards things that feel good. Pain motivates more. I talk about in my book, rags motivate. When you're belly up, you make a lot more moves than when you have $1 million in the bank. Okay. So just pain and scarcity does win. And it may not be the sexiest thing to teach people about success, but it's reality. And when you do it twice and you write a book about it, I mean, success from scratch, I trademarked it. Like, that's my thing. Like, I do it and I show people how to do it. Scarcity works.
So you sound like you could be potentially a creature of habit. You wake up every day, you do very, very specific things every day. So talk about some of your habits. So we like to get pretty tactical,
sure,
really down in the weeds. So talk about your habits, things that you do that make you successful.
Well, then that's a good question, because I don't believe that, another big thing in the success world is, you got everybody, all successful people do these 4 things before breakfast or whatever I don't know. Can we curse on here? No, we won't.
Good. You're good.
I won't. No, I'm saying I won't. I just, sometimes things naturally do what they do. But I don't have a specific agenda. Okay. I truly operate on, number 1, scarcity. Whatever comes my way, I'm going to squeeze till it can't be squeezed anymore. Okay. And I'm reactionary. I have things that come up. One of my favorite expressions is Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. So I can write my 8 goals for the day to check off, and that's beautiful. But what about after goal 3, I get whacked in the face? I'm very I operate in a very reactionary way, and I like to develop and I write about this in the book, reaction muscles. Reaction is a muscle. So we all go into uncharted territory. And the reason I focus on this so heavy is because I have so many people, I get hundreds of messages a day, emails, blah, blah, blah. Nick, what do I do next? And then I'll tell them, now what do I do? And then I'll tell them, now what do I do? So many people are stuck in this what do I do next psychology, and you have to make, and this is my thesis, what you're about to hear, rough draft moves, okay, which we can touch on in a minute. But I'm very reactionary, going back to what I do all day. I get something, my muscle of reaction, I go into uncharted territory all the time. I've seen thousands of entrepreneurial situations, but as we know as entrepreneurs, new stuff is constantly coming up. And I'm focusing on my reaction muscle because I think that is one of the most ultimate muscles in entrepreneurship. So when things come, I react and I strike. And then another thing comes, I react and I strike. So I'm not the bullet pointed day kind of guy at all. It's never worked for me. I'm more of when it comes, boom, comes, boom, comes. There's so many new things that come up, and you get good at doing new things. The beauty of developing that muscle is pretty soon you look like a genius because some new things will be thrown your way and you're reacting to it like a champ. And they're like, wait, Phil's never seen that before. How was he so good at that? Because going into uncharted territory regularly is a skill in itself. So I'm not a bullet point guy. I'm a boom. It comes, I strike. It comes, I strike. It comes, I strike. And I try to dominate all new scenarios as fast as possible. And that's super important. It served me unbelievably well.
It sounds like you're using a lot of intuition and feeling when it comes to those scenarios and how to respond. Am I right?
That's a good way to look at it. And I think that's based on experience. I wasn't born with this intuition. I just make so many rough draft moves. I force myself into so much uncharted territory so regularly. And I think, and that's, again, one of the core theses of my entire book. If someone put a gun to my head and said, how do you become successful? Tell me one thing. It's rough draft moves. And as you see, it's actually a bullet on my cover. It's a chapter I focus on, which is you don't need to know everything. People think when you write on the whiteboard back there and have a big business plan, that's working. That's not working. That's an analyzing supposed data that supposedly is real based on the data and the market research. The market changes in seconds nowadays. So all your research could be garbage tomorrow. Making a rough draft move takes you into what I call post-action analysis, which is actually the data that matters. So I'm not saying go in blindly, but you jump in. If 10% is beautiful and 90% you screwed up, you sucked at it, was garbage, it was all wrong, that 10% is a seed, and you can analyze something that actually happened in existence. Spreadsheets and whiteboards aren't work. And you know what? So, I'm bringing that up because I know how new people think, because I interact with people who want to be entrepreneurs and salesmen every single day. And these are the things I get from them. Some of them I'm like, seriously? Like, are you sure you want to be an entrepreneur? Because the way you're talking, like, Nick, do you promise me I'll make money in 30 days? And these goofy ass questions where I'm just like, oh, there's some poisoned minds out there. And part of that's with social media. Everyone's driving Lamborghinis and they think, well, you know, I can do that in 30 days. And just a lot of poisoned psychologies. It goes back to work, and it goes back to actual work, not spreadsheets and whiteboards. That's not work. Spreadsheets and whiteboards are not work. They're just not.
Love it. All right, so we're going to wrap up here and enter into a time of rapid fire questions in just a moment. I want to give our listeners an opportunity to know where they can find your book, where they can buy it at.
Yeah, you can go on Amazon. It's released the week of July 18th. They may be listening to this now on that week, but you go to Amazon, you just search Success from Scratch, Nick Ruiz, you'll find it. You'll also be able to go to successfromscratch.net, and there's links to buy the book there, among other things. And I do have for those of you wanting to learn how to get into real estate using no cash and credit, that's alphahomeflipping.com. But this book, I really want people to understand that what is inside of this book is not written about in all the success books that you've read about in the past. It makes you aware of the laws of economic evolution. There are no rules. I really want people to understand that a rule is something that some guy made up when he saw uncharted territory and somehow it stuck. He was just a guy like you, like me. Like, what does that mean? Like he said, oh, that never happened before. So we're going to say next time that happens, people have to do this. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. You do what you need to do to make yourself smile in this world. And to me, that's winning.
Love it. And I love the theme that's kind of transpired over the last 30 minutes, which is you can't plan for everything. Sometimes you have to roll with the punches, and you have to use your gut and intuition when you're moving through the success of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people say, well, Nick, what about me? I don't have gut and intuition. Well, neither the hell did I. You do stuff. When you do stuff, that quote unquote gut and intuition develops. And then you do another thing and it develops, and you do another thing and it develops. What I want to make clear is give yourself permission to make mistakes. Like, when did that become such a problem? Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. You go on that. Like, I made my first sales call at one point and I sucked. I stuttered. I was worried that he said that he was thinking, oh, this guy's a total schmuck and he knows nothing. Like, that's okay. We've all had our first of everything. Okay. The expression 1 is greater than 0. Like, you do the first thing and then you do the second thing, and then you look back, and when you make a series of rough draft moves 12 months later, when you look back at what you actually accomplished, you're like, holy shit. Like, it's truly unbelievable what people can accomplish if they would actually give themselves permission to look stupid for a second.
Yeah.
Like, it comes actually down to let yourself just look dumb. Yeah. It's okay.
Love it. Yeah, just get started, right? Yeah. Don't be afraid of failure, because there are lessons in that failure, just like there were lessons when you went bankrupt. You accredit that a lot to your success of kind of working your way back up. So this has been awesome. So Real Sales Talk family, go check out his book on Amazon. You're gonna get 1, 2, 3 nuggets out of it, and it's going to be impactful for your career and your personal life as well. So Nick, let's move into. We're going to ask you 3 rapid fire questions, and we do this to kind of get into the mind of our guests and give them a view into what has made them so successful. So first question for you, Nick, is who is the person that you admire the most? It could be professional or personal.
Who do I admire the most, professional and personal? I'd have to say, example wise, or what I look at my parents and I just think my dad, the guy worked a factory and he woke up and put a lot of hours in, and then he tried multiple things on the side, and nothing really, he didn't really have any big business spikes. But I think a lot of what I get, a lot of my pursuits, just seeing like struggle at a young age. I mean, I think it's healthy to be involved in some struggle in life. okay, whatever it may be. And just seeing, him trying to make it and provide for his family. Like I truly I don't know, my dad just busted his ass, and he just showed me like, you pursue things. Some work, some don't. So, that I just, looking at that personally and professionally, I think it's one of the reasons and one of my core traits have been so persistent and resilient as an entrepreneur. Cause like I've seen him start things, fail things, and it's just, it's a beautiful thing to witness, I think. So that's
Absolutely.
what I'd have to say there.
Yeah. Second question. Are you a morning person or an evening person, and why?
I would say more evening. I'm not the guy that wakes up at 5 and like conquers the world by 9. That's not me. And I think it's okay. And I want people to know, I think that it's okay for that not to be you. Like you read all these articles on entrepreneur, like the 5 habits of millionaires, and they all wake up at 4:30. Cool. Great. I'm not that guy. I don't conquer the world by 9 a.m. I just don't. I would say that, some of my more creativity happens in the morning, but in general, I would say I'm more on the later side of things. I'm not the super early riser. And I think that we have to have people like that saying that, because so everyone else says to be successful, you have to wake up at 5, and that's just not true.
That's awesome. And I think that's important to understand too, because, different people are different, and you may find your prime time when everyone is sleeping at night.
Yeah.
And instead of in the morning and waking up early. Okay. So last question, Nick. What book besides your own has had the biggest impact on your psyche and your career?
I'm going to say this. I really love the author Robert Greene. 48 Laws of Power was one of the better books that I've ever read, because I really, business books, success books, all that's fine and dandy, but breaking down raw human psychology, it's the same through the ages, and that intrigues me. And I think that's what draws me to an author like Robert Greene in a book like 48 Laws of Power, because what's true today was true 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. So I am truly obsessed with the human psyche, because everything that happens around us boils down to human psyche. I'd say one of my top books was 48 Laws of Power. I do read a lot. I don't read much business and success material because I think a lot of it's fluffy, and I'm just being honest. I think a lot of it is happy-go-lucky fluff, and it's not reality. And Robert Greene will punch you in the face quick with like, there's some killers out there that want to slice your throat and rip your face off, and you need to be aware.
Love it. Love it. It's fantastic. I haven't read that one, so definitely going to be.
It's good. Really, really quick. I think it's a great call out. You're exactly right. And it's going to punch you in the face. Like it's going to tell you the real things. I think the first time you read it, you're going to want to reread it.
Yes.
In actual circumstances that actually happen in life.
Yeah.
My favorite one of all of it is like, be royal in your own fashion, act like a king. And the idea is that if you actually think about it in context, it's a king actually should take care of his people in his kingdom and make sure that they're all taken care of first. Then you can be royalty. And I think there's a lot to it, but you have to read it with context and think about it in a real life scenario.
It's a killer book, is it not?
It's great.
Yeah. You haven't read it, Sean?
No, I've got to then.
Do it. And it's thick. It's like a Bible.
Nice.
But it actually, you're going to be like, oh, okay. It's just some stuff you probably haven't read before. It kind of goes into some, left field kind of things that aren't on the traditional success, like mainstream that we read,
Great. Yeah. Well, I know you've got to get to your next meeting, Nick. So thank you. Real Sales Talk family, go check out his book on Amazon and let us know what you think. Nick, how can people connect with you online if they want to follow what you're doing?
Yeah, well, successfromscratch.net, we talked about. alphahomeflipping.com is where I show people how to get into real estate and make money with no cash and no credit. A couple more important things too I want to highlight. My social channels, youtube.com/Nick Ruiz Entrepreneur and facebook.com/Alpha Home Flipping. I do something special with some of my content. I have a reality show. I have a videographer, and it's called In the Life. And I think it's a breath of fresh air for people because it's real entrepreneurship. He follows me around. I do my deals. You hear real banter, because everyone can say in theory what happens in business. And, I do that on Facebook and YouTube, and I think it's cool. It's In the Life. I think I'm like 26 episodes in. Every week I release a new one, and it's just 10 to 20 minutes of raw entrepreneurship and in all different situations, nothing scripted. It's a real reality show, not like where I have to follow bullet points to keep the audience engaged or whatever they do on HGTV or whatever, you know?
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think we're going to start to see more and more people do that because people love to live vicariously through others. So
yeah, and you learn. There's a different depth of learning when you're a fly on the wall. Like I can say, these are the 10 steps to make money in real estate or something. But then when you see like, when this situation happened, he kind of had this subtlety where he did this and that. And those things are hard to capture in like a course or a book. So it is nice also for learning to really see reality in real time. It's 100%. Fun.
Nick, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Great to get to know you. And I will definitely connect with you on those social channels as well. So Real Sales Talk family, thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Appreciate you guys having me. Seriously, it was fun.
Thanks for listening to Real Sales Talk. And a big thank you to our sponsor, Convertist. If you enjoyed this episode, go write a review on iTunes or any other podcasting platform.